All right. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. How are we feeling tonight? Very low energy, I see. That's good. We're going to change that, by the way. Okay, this is actually a very interactive session. So if you think somebody's going to come here and lecture you, that's why I told them, take the chair away. I can't sit still. There's going to be some action here tonight. Does that sound good? Can we have some fun while we talk about something serious? Is that okay? 3 people agree? Okay. Anyone else? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. All right, let's do it, inshallah. So today, I'm really excited to speak to you about this subject, which is when success isn't satisfying. And how many people have ever thought about this before? Just show of hands. Like, what about success and satisfaction? Yeah. And the first question that we have to ask when we're talking about this is, okay, you're talking about success. What is success? So I'm just curious for you, what do you think success is? Yeah, like out the gate. I'm asking questions, interactive. Yeah. So what is success? Let me see some hands. What is success for you? Yes.
Having the pleasure of Allah.
Pleasure of Allah. Textbook answer. MashaAllah. Very good. Okay, what else? Yes, sister. Self-actualization. Okay, can you say, what do you mean by that? Okay, so having the impact or the experiences that you want to in your life. Okay, that's an interesting definition, like that. Anyone else have a different definition of success? What is success? What does that mean? Yes. Yeah, achieving goals. Exactly. Yeah. Anyone else? Maybe one more brother. Yes.
Giving a sense of satisfaction, contentment with what you've done.
Yeah, contentment, satisfaction with what you've done. Absolutely. And the thing about this question is there isn't a right answer because success is a relative term. Success is a relative term. Success relative to what? I could be successful in a particular way. I could be successful in a particular aspect of my life. But what does it mean to be successful in all? Of course, we know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to say about success. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in 2 surahs, probably we're familiar with, Surah Al-A'la and Surah Al-Shams, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, and also قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that being successful, and this is, by the way, not the only time Allah talks about success in the Quran, but being successful has to do with purification of the self. And I think what our sister was saying is like, we're on the right track there, okay? But what are we told success is? Like, what do people tell us? What do our parents tell us, or society, or like, what are people telling you? Like, beta, you need to be successful. You need to fill in the blank. Yeah. Yeah. Academics, finances. Yes, absolutely. Anything else? Yeah, that about rounds it out. Yeah. Material possessions, exactly. Yeah, when we think success, we think successful in a material sense. But yes, sister, go. Prestige. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So extrinsic aspects, right? But when you all were talking about success, you were talking about intrinsic aspects, right? So it's very interesting how society defines success and how we internally define success. So it's like we're kind of teasing this out. And let me just ask, if you do and achieve the things like the material possessions and the prestige and the finances and the career, do you feel satisfied? Maybe you all are too young to have like really achieved everything you want, but like the achievements that you've had, do you ever feel like truly satisfied after you achieve them? There's no right answer to this, by the way. Anyone? Yeah.
I feel like as soon as you achieve something, it feels like there's a thing that's right after it that will give it to you. Like,
Yes.
as soon as you get it, you're like, oh, but there's like another one that might be better.
Exactly. Yeah. So what he was saying is, when you achieve a thing, then it's actually not satisfying because you realize that there's another thing to achieve. So once you climb one mountain, you look up and you're like, oh wow, that one's even taller. I want that one. And on we go. Yeah. Yes.
I think it also depends on the motivation behind like why you've achieved it, right? So, like for example, like if you're working hard towards a goal and you reach that goal, if if you're really fixated on the material aspect or like showing off to other people what you've accomplished, then it's a very short-lived high, right? But if you see pleasure in the challenge of reaching a goal itself, like the process and the methodology, and also like what motivated you in the first place to work hard, you don't have to stop after you reach that goal, and you still sustain the satisfaction that you have throughout the journey as you continue past those milestones.
Yes. So there's something about the journey itself that can be inherently satisfying. Very interesting. We're going to come back to that. All right. Does anyone feel dissatisfied? Now, here's a question. Like, wherever you're at in your career, in your life, like, do you feel satisfied? I'm just curious. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to. You can keep your hands down. But I'm just curious. Does anyone feel satisfied with where they're at? Okay, some hands. Yeah, some. Anyone feel dissatisfied? Some hands. Okay. It's hard to be honest, right? Like in front of all these people. Yeah, okay. So just, we're kind of like taking stock with where we're at. Me too. I actually felt very dissatisfied. I don't want to tell you my story here. I almost wish this was like a little bit higher, but we'll have to make do with this because my style is a lot of slides and a lot of clicks. So anyway, all right, this is me circa like 15, 20 years ago. Awkwardly fitting shirt, blurry picture. It really like captures the moment for me. Okay, very goofy, very awkward. Still a little goofy and awkward. Yeah. No, it's okay. I got it. No, thank you though. And my background is biomedical engineering. So I studied biomedical engineering. I did medical device product development. So you design tools that are used in minimally invasive surgeries, train doctors to use our products. Like, it's kind of weird to think about it now, but they're using the stuff I designed. So it's pretty cool. And like many people, I graduated college, and guess what? I got a job right out of college. That's like the first check. I wasn't just an engineer. I wasn't a doctor. I was like a mix of both. I was a biomedical engineer, so like medical engineering. Wow, like my parents must love that, right? And then I got this job. And then, like everyone who gets a job, what is the first thing you want to do? Well, you want to get like promoted. So eventually I did. I got promoted at my job. And then I bought the car, and this was like my dream car. I know, like, don't judge me. This is like back in the day. Infiniti G35. I remember when it first came out, I was like, oh my God, I want to get that car. And like for me, I grew up, not a lot of money, like our parents, like we were okay. But this was like, wow, a luxury brand car, like that's crazy, me driving that. But I got it. And then like the best of all is I married the girl. And this is like another story. Maybe I'll save it for another time. Very Romeo and Juliet. Okay. And so you would think for someone who like the job, the car, the girl, like check, should be happy, right? Should be satisfied, right? Successful, right? But no, I wasn't. And don't tell my wife like that I was dissatisfied about that. That obviously is satisfied. I know like how that be framed. She's on her way. But I just want to ask you, like, have you ever hit a goal and then still kind of felt empty inside? And I know someone kind of mentioned that, but has that ever happened for you? Just show of hands. Have you ever felt that way? Like you did a thing and then you're like, ugh, but like there's more, right? Yeah, same. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alhaakum at-takathur, like this pursuit of more, takathur. Like, let me get more stuff. Let me accumulate more wealth. Let me get more wins. Let me get more successes. Allah says, Alhaakum at-takathur. And halak is like destruction. It leads you astray. And so it's diverting you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're going to come back to this a little bit later. So I'm just kind of like planting seeds as I go through the story. So what did I do to address this void in my heart? I turned to something called personal development. Has anyone ever heard of a guy called Tony Robbins? Anyone? Yeah, couple people. Yeah. So I went like hard into personal development. I read all the books. I started attending the seminars. I attended the big Tony Robbins seminar. I traveled to come, actually, to go to his seminar. I did the fire walk. You walk on the hot coals. Like I did the whole thing, like everything. Spent tons of money on this stuff, and actually, it kind of helped. I was able to, because I thought, kind of like what our brother said earlier. I thought, oh no, the reason why I'm not satisfied is there's just another thing. Like if I just get that next one, then I'll feel good. If I just get that next thing, then I'll feel good. So I started to search and see like, well, what do I want to do with my career? Right? I was an engineer. I was like, like kind of meh on engineering, but I like people and I like the people side of things. So actually I transitioned careers and I tried to get into something called coaching. And at that time, it was like no one had ever heard of what it meant to be a coach or what that even means. Everyone would say like consultant. Like, no, it's not exactly the same thing, but close enough. And so I started pursuing that. And, fast forward a little bit, and I got a job at Google and I moved up here to the Bay Area. I'm originally from SoCal. So I moved up to the Bay Area about 10 years ago. And, I was living the dream, the job at Google, making more money than I ever thought was like possible in my entire life. Like, this is the money my dad made at the end of his career, and I'm doing it at like the beginning of like, this is psycho, like what? And, the trips and the travel and the, all the perks and, just, it was crazy. But I remember, any Googlers here, by the way? Anyone? Any Googlers? Couple? Yeah, being shy. Yeah. So I was at the quad. Okay, so this is the quad. So I remember sitting at my desk and looking outside, and I had my little Android collection back when they were cool. And I remember just having that feeling of just like, there's got to be something else. There's got to be more. There's got to be something that actually is satisfying. And I don't know if you feel that way. If you have a dream of like your life right now, it's like, this isn't quite it. This isn't quite what you had hoped, what you had expected. Maybe you had a dream that your life might have more meaning, more purpose, more fulfillment. And that was me. And so I got certified as a coach. I started doing coaching. I started helping people, outside of my career. My career, alhamdulillah, was in learning and development. So I was, helping people in that way. But I was helping salespeople, was in GBO, helping salespeople sell more ads. Okay. So not exactly the most like fulfilling thing. And then also Google was becoming progressively more evil as time went on in my tenure there. I was like, okay, I can't really justify this anymore. So anyway, I was like, okay, let me try doing stuff and like just help people. So like that's me in my garage, doing videos on like productivity and like teaching people how to be more effective in their lives. And I started getting involved in the community and like doing lectures and stuff like this. And fast forward to 2020, so COVID, right? So what I was doing was I was trying to get promoted at work while my wife was incredibly ill with something that we didn't know what it was, and it took a very long time for us to figure out exactly what was going on. We had 2 children under the age of 2. I was trying to start a business as a coach and get that off the ground, and then COVID hit. And all this at the same time. And I wasn't like, a sensible person would have been like, let me like remove maybe like a few things off of my plate here and just kind of, hunker down. But no, I felt like I just need to go to that next thing. And when I get that next thing, then I'll feel good. So I had this like compulsive drive to achieve. I had this compulsive drive for more. Where did that lead me? It led me to anxiety. I started going to therapy. And I had gone to therapy before this, but anyway, I was going to therapy. And then when COVID hit, I became depressed, burnt out, and ultimately, I mean, it's kind of awkward to say, but I had even like thoughts of like, why am I even alive? Like, not like I want to end my life, but like, I kind of wouldn't mind if my life ended. And, it's just like very existential thoughts, right? And I know, just statistically speaking, some of you in this room have had those thoughts too. Just saying, right? And that was me. And I remember the moment where basically I had to declare my defeat. Here I was, the high performance coach, Mr. Super Achiever, the Googler, whatever, whatever. And I had to basically say, like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. This is not working. I had to take medical leave, short-term disability leave. Like, I was disabled. I couldn't work. It was that bad. I was disabled. I got into like a group therapy program. I started doing all this research, and I went on this quest to understand, why am I like this? Like, what's wrong with me? Or what was wrong with me? Why did I feel this compulsive need to pursue more? Why didn't I just stop? Why wasn't I sensible? And I tried everything. And when I say everything, I tried everything. Okay. I read all the books. I got all the, personal development stuff. I did all the psychology, all the therapy. I did all the, even like weird techniques. I got into somatic healing. I got into breath work. I got into EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, hypnosis, hypnotherapy, you name it, I did it. And there's more, by the way, on the list. And I wanted to figure out why. And what that led me to was this. Ultimately, I was like, I need to figure out, why am I like this? And I discovered a guy, his name is Daniel Amen. He's this doctor, psychiatrist, and he is a proponent of this particular technology to scan your brain, okay? And it's not a functional MRI, it's like a more accessible way. It's called the SPECT scan. Anyway, without getting into technical stuff. And I learned a lot about myself from understanding my brain, okay? And this is literally my brain that you were looking at right here. So the first thing is, one of the big revelations, which was like a bonus, the doctor was asking me, like, do you have trouble focusing? Do you have trouble like concentrating on tasks? Do you have trouble on the? And I was like, yeah, like doesn't everyone? And then she's like, yeah, no, they don't. Have you ever heard of something called ADHD? And I was like, of course I know what ADHD is. And she's like, yeah, you see these, I don't know if you guys can see it. Maybe if I go up here. Those holes right there, you guys see those holes? That's not supposed to be there. Okay? That's prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex is responsible for executive function in the brain. And so she started asking me, like, you ever had like an injury to your brain? I was like, injury to my brain? I was like, oh yeah, no, I broke my nose one time and I got concussed. And she was like, no, probably even earlier than that. And I was like, oh, I remember this one time when I must have been in 7th grade. I was walking across the field and a soccer ball just, like, I didn't see it and it just hit me and I literally like did a flip. Like, it just knocked me head over heels. And after that moment, suddenly I was like a worse student when I was like a great student. And I never made the connection. I had a traumatic brain injury. That was one thing. It was like, surprise, you have ADHD, and this is why. The other thing that was very interesting is, let me see if I can point it out, is this kind of diamond shape. That is a sign of something called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And what I learned in all of my studies in trying to understand myself is about this thing called trauma. And trauma, sometimes we think about it as like, okay, like the people in Gaza, okay, that's trauma. But actually, trauma has many forms and manifestations. And this was one of them, my upbringing. Just my upbringing alone. Something called complex trauma, or sometimes they call it childhood trauma, which actually caused functional changes in my brain, which lead to now being on like the neurodivergence spectrum, okay? So I know this is not the talk that you guys thought you were coming to. But I'm sharing this because this is super important, okay? You're gonna see, I promise it's relevant, okay? I know, super heavy. So eventually I was like so fascinated by this and so like trying to understand myself and understand why I'm like this while I'm raising these kids, and my kids were in the back, and they were, like, why are they having a hard time and why won't they listen to me? And then I remember, so anyway, I got certified in the brain health, so the spec scan that you saw. I got certified in integrative somatic trauma therapy certification and other stuff. And I remember, oh, what happened? And I remember I just had this clarity of like what I need to do. Is like, I need to be true to myself, like what I believe on the inside, which is, I don't want to work at Google. Like, it was never really a dream of mine. Like, of course, I felt like a fool to like say no to it. Like, oh my gosh, who would say no to that? But that wasn't my dream. That's not what I wanted. I care about people. I want to help people. I want to guide people, coach people. I didn't really care so much about that. And by the way, it was like I said, becoming more and more evil as time went on. So eventually I had to peace out. I said bye to Google and I struck out on my own. I started doing my own coaching thing. This is like behind the scenes. I started developing my own tools. I've built this thing called the Life Lab Notebook, which is a tool I designed for my own brain and my own self to actually be productive and make progress in life. And I developed a system and a process to help people through this journey. Remember, the subtitle of this thing is from achievement to alignment. How do you do that, right? It's like this, okay? And there's a process. I'm not going to talk about it right now. That's not the point of the talk. But the point is that you have to understand who you are, how you operate, how your nervous system works. What is the latest science, by the way, about the brain? Talking about trauma and all these things. And how does it affect your mind, body, and soul? Your soul. All these things are interconnected. That's a process that I take my clients through, and we work on that. But that journey, like the reason why I spent so much time talking about that, like I told sister, please don't do a bio because I'm going to talk way too much about myself. The journey is kind of like the journey of the caterpillar, right? The caterpillar starts out, wants to make progress, pretty slow, pretty chunky, not able to make progress, and then eventually, they move forward, but then they kind of stop, right? And they go into this cocoon. And what happens when they go into the cocoon is they die, right? They effectively die. They decompose, they decay, and they are eventually reborn as the butterfly. And I know, super cheesy, right? But that is the journey that I believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed for each and every one of us, is that we are set out into this life with some burdens. You might be carrying some burdens from your childhood. You might be carrying some burdens from your upbringing. You might be carrying some burdens from intergenerational issues, geopolitical, socioeconomic issues. And all of those things, you're carrying them. But the journey to Allah and the journey to success comes in purifying yourself from those. Remember, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. You want to be successful? The only way to be successful is to take those burdens that you're carrying and transform them. Okay? So that's the first key idea that I wanted to share with you here today. Second key idea that I want to share with you today is what I call the pyramid of purpose. And this is the tool for alignment. Okay, so let me give you an example. All right, here's this guy. I had a little too much fun with AI while I was doing this. You're in the forest. You're looking for directions. You're trying to figure out which way to go. What do you need? He's got the map. What's missing? The compass. He needs a heading. He needs to know which way is north so he can actually make use of that map. Assuming he's been, turned around and doesn't have a heading, right? And that's what the pyramid of purpose is all about. So this part, pay attention. It's really important. Gosh, I wish I had a clicker. Okay. This is a framework that I want you to think about your life. Okay, and it starts with, who are you? Who are you? Like you personally, you. Don't give me the textbook answers. Like I'm a slave of Allah and things like that. Yes, true. But like, who are you? You specifically, right? And knowing yourself is actually a huge part of success, right? Alignment. Aligned with what? Aligned with what? Aligned with who you are and who Allah created you to be. And we're going to come back to that in a second. And from that place of that, from that sense of identity, manifests a vision for your life. And then from that vision for your life, what you think your life could be, comes a mission, the thing that you're sent on this earth to do. And then from that flows your goals, the things that you want to do, the specific tangible targets that you want to achieve. Well, guess what? Most people, when they come to me as a coach, they say, help me with my goals. Most people, when we said, remember when we defined success, we said, achieving your goals. Well, how do you know what goals? How do you know what you should be doing? How do you know what career you should be doing? How do you know what life you should be living? How do you know how many kids you should have? Or if you should have kids, or if you should live here, or if you should live there, or whatever? How do you know? You need to start with a sturdy foundation. You need to start with your identity, right? And there's one more piece that we're going to get to. But from there, then we get into the how, right? And the how is strategies and tactics. If I want to lose weight as my goal, what is the strategy? Am I going to do like caloric deficit, or am I going to do more exercise, or am I going to do keto, or am I, right? And then tactics are like, okay, well then what are the meals that I'm going to make, right? Anyway, you get the idea. And then that breaks down into two tracks. There are tasks that you do repeatedly, and there are tasks that you do one time. Repeated tasks, we call them routines. They also turn into habits. And then one times are projects, and those turn into individual actions. And ultimately, how do you manifest that version? I think sister said self-actualization. How do you manifest that? It is through action. As the scholars say, al-iman ma waqara fil qalbi wa nataqa bihi al-lisan wa saddaqahu al-amal. That iman is what exists in the heart. It is pronounced by the tongue, and it is manifest as true in actions. Actions, right? الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, right? So this is the pyramid of purpose. So if you are looking for which direction to turn your life, you start with this pyramid of purpose. Now, there's one piece that I said is missing that's really important, that a lot of people miss, okay? And that is something called context. Context. There is a unique context for your life. Your life is very different than any other life that has come before it. We are born in this time and age. Allah has chosen to give us birth in this time, in this place, in this age, give you these experiences, these skills, this knowledge. This is all context. That comes into and feeds into your identity and what you can do with your life. So why? Like, sometimes I wonder, like, Allah, why now? Like, it's so interesting. Like, why not 500 years ago? Why not 1,000 years ago? Why not 200 years in the future? Allah has a wisdom, right? Allah has chosen us to be here now. So it's an interesting thought. So then the question is, how do I make meaning out of the creation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created me, and the timing that Allah has created me in this life? Now, how many people are going to the summit? Show of hands. Got your tickets? Not enough people are raising their hands. Okay. Okay. How about next week? Who's going to be here next week? Just curious. Yeah, most people. Okay. Because a good friend of mine, another fellow coach, his name is Uthman Al-Talib, is going to be coming and talking more about that specifically. So don't miss that. It's going to be really good. Okay. But this is the idea: is to find the heading. Your compass is pyramid of purpose. Got it? Yeah. Okay. I was going to make an Egypt joke, but I'm just going to skip that. Okay. So now I want you to reflect. Okay, so remember I said this is like interactive. So now we're actually going to do work. Okay, and I want you to think about your identity. Whenever we start this work, whenever I work with a client, we start with identity. Who am I? Right? And I'm the kind of person who, what? What do you aspire to be? What actually gives you that feeling of fulfillment or satisfaction? And if your life was a success, what would it happen? In an arbitrary sense. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to reflect on this. Okay, so I want notebooks out. I want phones out. Please don't like go on social media or something, check email, text. But actually take notes, like notes app only. Okay? Really think about this. Okay, so we're actually like literally we're going to do work right now. Reflection. Okay, can we do that? Can I trust you guys? Oh gosh. All right, and if we can ask people to just scoot in a little bit as well for the folks in the back, just scoot in. There's plenty of space as well. Front row here as well, sisters, is wide open. Just try to scoot in as much as possible. All right, so I'm going to give you about 3 minutes, okay, to think about this. I just want you to get started. Okay, you're not going to answer all the questions. You're not going to answer them perfectly, but just give it some thought. Like how many times do we stop to think about our lives in this way, right? So give yourself a few minutes. Think about these prompts. And we'll resume in 3 minutes. Bismillah. You don't need your mouth to reflect on these questions. You should not be speaking to your neighbors about these questions. All right, that's 3 minutes. For those who are not talking, how was that? Any quick reflections, just maybe one or two? What did you notice? What did you realize? Don't scratch your head right now because I'm going to call on you. Anyone? Yes, sister. Yeah, nice to be reminded about something good about myself. Yeah, great. Anyone else? Yes. You have a lot to think about. Yeah, yeah. These are big questions, no doubt. Great. Okay, let's keep moving here. Now I'm going to give you another framework, another tool here in our toolbox that I like to call the Triforce Trifecta. Because as we discussed, success is more than just career. Like your life is more than just your career. And I'm just curious, how many people know what a Triforce is? Have I ever heard that term? Anyone? Couple? Yeah, more on the guy's side. Not surprised. Triforce, a mythical artifact where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, so if you imagine the big triangle, break it down into 3, Triforce. Okay, but why is it a trifecta? Because actually, it's a trio of trios. Okay, so actually, before I get into that, so if you think about your life, there are three aspects. Let's say there is you, yourself. There are your relationships, and then there's also society and your interactions with society. But actually, each of those, like I said, is a trio of trios, can be broken down into their own constituent triforce. And so we're going to go into that right now, and we're going to break down each of those. And I want you to, you don't have to write any of this down until we get to the very end, but the triforce of the self. What is this about? The self, there are three parts. I hinted at them earlier. Well, first of all, the goal of this part is to expand your capacity, your ability to do, right? That's what you and yourself, the goal is expanding your capacity. There is the physical side, and the goal there is your capability. There is the mental side, and that's consciousness, and the spiritual, which is connecting with your creator. So you might notice this mind, body, soul, right? This is like pretty basic. When you think about you are made up of mind, body, soul. And last thing on Triforce of the Self, how do you expand your capacity? It is by activation and then recovery. So putting yourself and stretching yourself beyond, and then doing activities that can recharge you or rejuvenate. So learning, it's like, you're doing hard work, you're thinking about new things, and then you're like integrate those when you go to bed at night. Or exercise, and so on and so forth, right? Next is the Triforce of relationships. Here we're talking about connection. How connected do you feel in your life? And that's why having programs like this is fantastic. There are a few aspects of that. First, of course, is the marital. Companionship is the goal there. Then family. The goal there is caring, and social, and the goal there is a sense of community. Now, I want to give you another way to look at this as well. If you think about the rings of relating, I like to call it the rings of relating, where you are that innermost circle, and then there are, these concentric circles outside. And your relationships, if you break it down, there's the spouse there, the nuclear family, extended family, friends, colleagues, neighbors, and just acquaintances, right? These are the people in your life. And so as you're thinking about your life, I want you to think about intentionally how you want to show up for all these different people, and how much love and attention and respect and regard do you give to each layer in your life. And probably, and hopefully, more on the inside than on the outside, right? So that's the rings of relating. And lastly, Triforce of society, the goal here being creativity. And really we're talking about like creation. Because one of the unique things about human beings, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He put the soul into each and every one of us, allows us, or it gives us the ability to create. That's something that, is very uniquely human, I would say. The ability to create. And for many of us, most of our creation happens in the first one, which is vocation, or another fancy way of saying career. That's where we create value, okay? Then there's the financial, how you capture and are a custodian of the value you create. And then lastly, and perhaps most importantly, is the environment. And there it's about contributing value. And I think it's really important to say here, by the way, when I say environmental, I don't mean like save the trees environmental. I mean like being the khulafa of Allah on earth, like taking care of the earth, stewards of the earth in that sense. Oh boy. And so the Triforce trifecta, 9 realms of your life. And so when you think about your life, like I said, is more than just one aspect. It's more than just career. It's all this, right? And so what I want you to do, and you can just take a picture of this and come back to this later, which is think about what level do you want to be at in all of these different areas. And this is actually something that I do regularly, is evaluate myself on these 9 realms. Like, how's my marriage? How's it been? How am I with my kids? How am I with my parents? How am I at work? How am I with my career? How's my business doing? How is, right, my relationship with Allah? And I evaluate every aspect of my life. And I think about what matters and why, and also what the journey might look like as well. And then when you have that, you can reflect on where you are today. So you can evaluate where you are today and where you want to be in, usually I do it 90-day intervals, or it could be 1-year intervals. And think about like what's working and what's not working, right? So maybe you're doing this and you're like, wow, my health is at an 8 out of 10. Well, why? Well, I'm super active. I'm playing basketball with the guys. I'm, hitting the gym. eating clean, getting sleep, yeah, I feel pretty good, you know? And then you might find in another area, like house finances. Oh gosh, well, I'm not really, taking care of things. I'm not really, my income is low or whatever, right? You get the idea. You can figure out what's working and what's not. Okay, so there's that Triforce trifecta in case you want to take a photo. Anybody? What's coming out? Yeah.
I saw like one of the questions was like marks on a scale of 1 to 10 where you want to be in those categories, right?
Yes.
Why would somebody not put a 10 for all of them?
Great question. So for a particular period, so if I say like in the next 90 days, I want to be 10 out of 10 in everything, probably not realistic, right? Because it takes a lot of focused effort to get from where you are to where you want to be. And so usually when I work with people, I recommend focusing on 1 or 2 areas at a time and making progress in those. But that's a good question. Okay, last thing, I want to close with this, all right? We're talking about success. And like it feels yucky to talk about that and like not think about our brothers and sisters in Gaza, or our brothers and sisters in Sudan, or our brothers and sisters, like you name a Muslim country, right? Because I think for a lot of people, and especially after like what we've seen in Gaza, people have started to wake up to life, like real life, not just what we thought life is, which is you get a job, go to school, get a job, have a career, kids, retire, maybe pray at the masjid, and alhamdulillah, good for you, inshallah, you go to Jannah. Like, is that life really? Like, are we sure? And I think as a community, we're waking up on a much deeper level, right? Where people are saying, like, we got to do more, like this can't be it, right? And like that's kind of how I was, like when I had that corporate job, I was like, this can't be it. This can't be everything. Like, am I really going to spend my days, helping some billionaire shareholders get richer? Like, it just didn't feel good, right? And so that's my challenge to you today, is to think on a deeper level about your life and what is possible for you and your life. Because I guarantee you have in your mind, like right now, if I asked you, you have a conception of who you are and who you can become. Right? Like for me, I never thought I would earn more than $100,000 a year. Like that just seemed impossible. Like my dad made that money only after 30 years of it. And like I made that money, alhamdulillah, earlier. Right? And like there was a conception that I had, like a limit, right? I'm just using that as an example. But there's a limit for what you have of what you think is possible for you in your life. And I love the Steve Jobs quote when he says that the life that we live has been made up by people who are equally as smart or perhaps not quite as smart as you are. This life that we live. So you can choose. Remember, going back to the pyramid of purpose, what you believe life should be, and then go and create it. Okay? So that's why I want to close with this verse, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Allah again talks about success here, one of the many places in the Quran. He says, let there be a group from amongst you who calls others to goodness, encourages what is good, and forbids what is evil. It is they who will be successful. So you remember at the Triforce Trifecta, the very tip top was the environment, what we're doing for the community, what we're doing for society. And Allah's talking about that here. Like, we got to be successful. How do we be successful? Allah, it's by standing up for what's right, by enjoining what's right, by forbidding what's wrong, trying to change things, trying to do something more than just the career and financial success that we've all been taught. So how do you contribute more? I have a path for wherever you're at, okay? So we're going to rapid fire this. Get your phones out. Number one is we're going to continue this conversation on Sunday, inshallah. So first of all, get your tickets. It's not too late. QR code, buy your tickets now, complete the transaction. Phones out, everyone's good? We got that? Yeah, they didn't tell me to put this in. I'm just like, that cool. Number two, there are some people amongst you, probably a handful, who have been talking with your friends, right? And you've been thinking like, gosh, we really need a blank. We really need to do blank. But I just don't know how, or I just don't have the resources. I don't have the expertise. I don't have the connections. I want to help you, okay? I am connected to a community of people who are looking to support young leaders. Okay, we're looking for young leaders. I don't care if you're a brother or a sister. We're looking for young leaders. If that's you, come find me. Come find me after. Please come find me. I don't know who you are, but you know who I am, right? So come find me because I want to support you. Okay, and there is a whole apparatus behind this. Number 3, how many people have seen this flyer or have heard of something called Link? A few people. Okay. Some people feel like, I'm not ready. Like I don't exactly know what I need to do, or I don't have like the solution. And you want like a path. Link is that path. You graduate after college or MSA or whatever. What do I do? Now I'm in the community. I'm at the masjid. Like not every masjid is as mashallah as this one. Many people are probably traveling to be here. What do I do? You join a program, and this program is called Link. This is a cohort program. This cohort is in November. Scan the QR code if you're interested in learning more. I think the thing starts tomorrow, or there's a session tomorrow. So like literally don't delay. And there are people who are taking their time to like train you. They're going to train you what to do, how to do it, how to think, skills, skill building, everything you need to get. And then by the end, you're actually going to build a something, whatever that something is for you, whatever makes sense for you. So Link, that's number 3 or 4, or I forgot, lost track. Okay. If you want to hear more about this type of thing, you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can follow me on Instagram. You can find me on both of those. You can scan the QR codes, or just search my name, Kareem Elsayed. There's a very famous YouTuber called Kareem Elsayed, who's from Egypt, but he does like food stuff and blogs and blogs and things like that. That's not me. Anyway, so if you search my name, you'll probably find him. I also have a community that I'm putting together as well. It's called Liberated Leaders. People who want to do that inner transformation, right? People who want to do that work and become the leader who they're meant to be. Liberated Leaders community. And last but not least, this is something that I do professionally. I think I didn't mention that earlier. So I am a coach. I work with individuals. I work with teams, by the way. I do like leadership coaching, high performance coaching. So if you or your team or your company want to bring in someone to like help and like run a program or do something like that, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to chat about that as well, inshallah. And if you want to go further, faster, you need a guide, right? Don't do it alone. You need support, inshallah. All right, with that, I don't know if we have time. We're probably over time. Okay, yeah. No. Okay, so we'll call it there. And if anybody has any questions, you can come find me probably like after Salah, inshallah. All right, jazakumullah khair. Oh, sorry.